for the Philadelphia Eagles facing the New York Jets. Maybe Minshew Mania will start back up again in Week 13. And Joe Burrow.
The swaggiest?
Who dey?
Is he still the swaggiest quarterback?
He's still the swag. I have such a crush on Joe Burrow and his swag. But the Bengals, they're making some noise, and they're contending for some playoffs. Hopefully, maybe Joe Burrow getting you to your fantasy playoffs, which start here in just a few weeks. Welcome in, everyone, to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. I'm Kimmy Checks, holding it down with Adam Rank and Michael Frank Florio. Week 13, we made it. Biggest thing you're looking forward to this Sunday?
You know what? I want one of these rando tight ends to hit, like a Foster Moreau.
Ryan Griffin.
Or the Family Guy Ryan Griffin, because we're all going to victory lap. Because I look at the rundowns when I'm not here, by the way, and I notice everybody's talking about these guys. So I think we're all just going to take a collective victory lap whenever these players score.
Okay, I love it. What about you?
I'm going to cheat. I'm most looking forward to Monday night game, the Bills-Patriots. I feel like I'm playing in that game. I'm that nervous about it. So
Florio
What's it like
is
rooting
a
for a
Bills
team that's
fan
super good
and nervous.
And you get
very
nervous
weird because for my whole life they've been bad. So this is very new to me.
It's awesome. I'm excited for you.
Though Florio's the nicest guy in the world, I've never seen him talk so badly about anyone as he has Mac Jones. Mac Jones, not a fan of you.
Mac
It's
Jones.
more the
hates them.
Patriots. It's just they get
I
so
think
much
it's personal with
love.
Mac Jones.
Well, we don't even have to talk about them today if we don't want,
There it
because
is. Yeah,
they're playing tomorrow. As a reminder,
Monday.
don't forget to send us all of your questions to us at NFL Fantasy throughout the show. Our notable actives and inactives. Now, these are for our early games. Very good news. If you have Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, both of those guys will be active today, along with Brandon Cooks. However, Allen Robinson is out. Jalen Hurts is out. Daniel Jones, DeAndre Swift, and Dalvin Cook. A lot of big name guys missing Week 13. Looking at our late games and some injuries to monitor here. James Robinson still a game time decision. CEH, he's questionable. Hasn't been feeling so great lately. Melvin Gordon's out, so I guess it means for Javonte Williams. Josh Jacobs is expected to play, as is Odell Beckham Jr. for the Rams. Darrell Henderson's questionable. That's kind of a late one that popped up, as well as Darren Waller, who is doubtful. Week 13's tough with all of these injuries. But with that being said, there's some guys who have to step up to the plate. One of them we saw earlier when we opened the show. It's Gardner Minshew with that awesome mustache, and he takes on the Jets today. We feeling okay about this situation? Not assuming that people are picking up Gardner Minshew, but maybe for Devonta Smith or others.
People might be. I think it's an interesting situation because the Jets, if I'm remembering this correctly, they've given up 20 rushing touchdowns this season, 17 to running backs, 3 to quarterbacks. I don't think the quarterback's going to be as much of a threat to run for a touchdown, or at least he's not as good as Jalen Hurts. I think that they're still going to try to run the football, and so I think that, with Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, I didn't see on that list, so I'm assuming he's playing. I think those are really good options. I think they'll both be fine, but yeah, I'd like to see Devonta Smith step up a little bit.
I think you could still start both of those running backs there. Like you said, great matchup. I feel best about Dallas Goedert in this passing attack. I just think that Minshew doesn't have the strongest arm in the league, so I think a lot of short, safe passes to him. I would still use Devonta Smith, though, in this matchup.
Okay. So Gardner Minshew, we don't really care if you play well. We just want you to get our guys
We're happy
involved. We are happy for
This is such a weird one for me because I love Gardner Minshew. But I don't like the unnecessary hate on Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
Like people acting like he's not a franchise. He's a franchise quarterback.
There was a report, no matter how good Minshew plays, Hurts will get the job back. It's like,
of course.
He earned it. 100%.
Eagles fans, calm down about Jalen
He's a good quarterback.
He's a very good quarterback. Your Chicago Bears are going to face two guys who are taking the field for the first time in the last 3 weeks. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are expected to play today. So what do fantasy managers do about the situation?
First of all, my grandfather, for whatever reason, hates the Cardinals because they were originated in Chicago. So he's like, we never lose to the Southsiders. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to watch the game today. Hey, here's my thing, though. Here's what I'll say about Kyler Murray is that when you have a guy returning from an injury, I think for a quarterback, there's really nothing you can do to limit him because once he's on the field, Kyler's just going to play the way that he's going to play. There's nothing the coaches can do. When he has an opportunity to run, he's going to run. I think where you can control it is with the wide receiver. And I just don't think they'll put DeAndre Hopkins on the field enough for him to be a legit wide receiver 1 or 2. And so if you've made it the last couple of weeks without DeAndre Hopkins, if you still have those good options, I think that I would look at those guys as well.
Yeah, I do think Kyler Murray, you start him if you have him. D-Hop, though, yeah, with the bad weather and him being on that hamstring, they do have other good receiving options there, too. I still have him ranked pretty highly, but I'm with you, Rank. I don't feel very confident in how much he's going to play today.
Who do you have him ranked below?
He's I think I have him around like 15. So all of the, the studs are all ahead of him. I can get back to some other names that I definitely have ahead of him, but
what about like Brandon Cooks? Like that's an interesting one to me because like the matchup is really good, and so I look at that and I'm like, sometimes it's so difficult because you see the name DeAndre Hopkins, and you just want to start him. And I know like because we always do these lists, you do your rankings Monday night. I start putting together my start 'em, sit 'em tonight, as a matter of fact. So if you're like, well, if DeAndre's playing, I'll play him. And then it's like as the week goes on, you got to like talk yourself out of it and look at the situation. The weather gets terrible and things like that. So I think guys like Brandon Cooks, even though he's fighting an illness, that might not be the best example. But Devontae Smith, like normally, like you wouldn't have thought that, 6 weeks ago. Now you're like, oh, of course.
Okay. So some options for wide receiver if you're still a little bit iffy on DeAndre Hopkins taking the field again. But it's time now for the waiver wire presented by KFC. Actually, maybe a waiver wire guy could be a good addition and pickup. These are guys that are still available in over 50% of NFL.com leagues. Looking through some names, Matt Breida for the Buffalo Bills taking on the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson, Kendrick Bourne, Rashad Bateman, still Van Jefferson, Pat Freiermuth, Cole Kmet, and Gerald Everett. So we all need a hero, a waiver wire hero. Give me one, Adam Rank. On menu, off menu, it can be whoever.
No, I'm going to go off menu. You saw those players right there. That's pretty easy. But I think Josh Reynolds is somebody who could have a pretty good opportunity this week going up against the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings have allowed a lot of production to opposing wide receivers this season. They're on a streak where they're giving up a top 10 wide receiver. I think it's their last 6 games, but it's been pretty extensive. And one of the things the Vikings do really well is shut down the tight end. They've allowed 1 touchdown to a tight end this season. That, so for me, TJ Hawkinson would normally be viewed as the best pass catcher in this offense, but because of that, I think it goes to Josh Reynolds.
I like Josh Reynolds this week. I know that was a big guy you were hot on as well.
Yeah. If Rank didn't beat me to the homework, I would have probably been talking to him right now.
All right, well, give me your waiver wire.
So if he gets picked up, I think a good pivot is Deshaun Jackson. Jackson had 4 targets last week, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's 3 more than he had in his first 2 games as a Raider. And he's shown us last week he still has those jets. He could still get downfield with the best of them. So I think if you're going a little bit deeper, it's a great matchup. Washington gives up a ton of passing yards each and every week. So I think they're going to be taking some deep shots with D-Jax. If you're going a little bit deeper on the waiver wire, he's a name that I like.
I have a team where I'm starting both those guys.
There we go. We just need 2 long catches.
Hey, it's week 13. These aren't the names that you probably thought you were going to do, but hey.
There's a lot of teams where I had Calvin Ridley and Amari Cooper. No, Calvin Ridley and Allen Robinson is who I drafted in the 3rd and 4th round. Teams aren't doing so well.
Yeah, you going to make it to the playoffs this year? Yeah, no, probably not, Bob. If I am going to chat waiver wire heroes, because you guys do, got to keep it copacetic over here. What about Kendrick Bourne? Guys, I'm sorry.
Bourne identity.
No,
I'm sorry, Florio. Well. I know he's facing your Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, but it's still interesting to me that this guy's still widely available in over 50% of NFL.com leagues, because you look at his recent production, and it's incredible. He's had 3 receiving touchdowns in the last 3 games, over 23 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3 matchups. Like Mac Jones is doing these checkdowns, right? And he's going to Kendrick Bourne. If you're looking for some receiver help, if maybe you have DeAndre Hopkins and you're a little bit iffy about that after what you highlighted, Rank, Kendrick Bourne still a safe option for Monday Night Football.
I know his matchup's not great, but he's one of the, again, we're talking about like how desperate people are to pick up guys at this juncture. 4 teams on a bye. Injuries all over the place. I like it.
Kendrick Bourne, roll the dice, baby. Time now for 15 for 15, presented by Geico. Adam Rank, I want to get into some must-start quarterbacks.
The brand new list here, because we had to take out Jalen Hurts, because again, I did that earlier in the week. Yeah, I got Tom Brady as my QB1. I think that Patrick Mahomes playing at home against the Denver Broncos. We know how good Andy Reid is coming out of a bye week. Justin Herbert at Cincinnati, even though it's an early contest. And Derek Carr. I think to me, Derek Carr is a guy that gets overlooked quite a bit. So there we go.
Okay. I love some quarterback play. Any quarterback you're extra loving this week?
Oh, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about Joe Burrow, though. Because, I know he's your favorite
Swagmeister.
Mr. Swag himself. You know what? I don't think that he gets enough love for how well he's played. He's had multiple touchdowns in 8 of his 11 games. One of 3 quarterbacks who's done that. I think the Bengals and the Chargers are 2 of the higher-scoring teams in the league. And even though they're talented on defense, what we see in the NFL a lot with these high-powered offenses is that the quarterbacks eventually win out. So this is why I like playing both Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert in this one. And you know what? That's the one thing that we just saw right there in that highlight is one of the things I've been impressed about is that Joey B, not afraid to run when he needs to, can scramble, extend plays. So I think he's an excellent option. And you see right there, the Chargers have allowed a top 12 quarterback in 4 consecutive games. Fire him up, get him into your lineup.
Fire up the pass catchers for the Bengals as well. All right, sticking with the theme here, Florio, I want to turn it to you for some must-start running backs.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell, I think, is as must-start could be right now in a great matchup with some other pieces there banged up. Antonio Gibson's been getting a lot more work as of late in a pretty good matchup there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I know he's dealing with an illness, but he still saw a lot of volume the last time we saw him out there, so I would still be starting him. Jamal Williams had 20 touches last week, and it's in a really good matchup against the Vikings. And then you see there Myles Gaskin's going up against the New York Giants. I like Gaskin. I know he's been a little bit up and down this year in fantasy, but the last 5-6 weeks, he's been consistently giving you 15 or more touches. And the Giants struggle against the run, but they're strong against the pass. And with the Giants missing basically everyone on their offense, I could see this game getting a little bit out of hand. And if that's the case, we know that the Dolphins really like to grind out the clock with Myles Gaskin. So I think that he is a must-start option. I have him inside my top 15 running backs this week.
Ayo, top 15, not a bad finish if he can get it done here in Week 13. Let's give some pass catchers some love, Adam Rank.
Well, we got Michael Pittman Jr., and I know that Internet Guy did not like Michael Pittman Jr. They're going to be killing the Texans. How do you think they're going to get up on the Texans? We're going to throw a little bit. Devontae Smith, Brandon Cooks, we talked about, even though he's battling an illness. Deontay Johnson, which apparently was obvious to everybody, despite the fact that Ben Roethlisberger has a noodle arm. By the way, somebody on the internet did not like the fact that you referred to Ben Roethlisberger and his noodle arm.
Oh, Internet Guy was upset with me?
Internet Guy was upset with you, but nobody has been upset with Adam Thielen, who is continuing to score touchdowns at a somewhat prolific pace. And it is one of the most incredible things. Like, if you look at it, he was so good last year that there is regression. So he might not get 14 touchdowns this year. He might get 13. And so I apologize to everybody who, I said that there was going to be a little bit of a regression. He's averaging nearly a touchdown per game. And this week going up against the Detroit Lions, let me tell you something.
Yes.
I feel like the Rams have to get back to winning by running the football. I think this Vikings team, with Dalvin Cook out, is just going to end up throwing the football a ton. And I think Adam Thielen gets a touchdown. I think he's going to have
every highlight we've shown was him scoring a touchdown.
That's all. Those are the only catches he makes.
And guess what? Touchdowns and fantasy football.
They go well together.
They go well.
Like
they go very well
school,
together. What about you in high school?
It was the exact opposite.
Weird, bad joke. Florio, my favorite position, the tight end spot.
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth, we were talking about Big Ben's noodle arm. He has been the biggest benefactor of that noodle arm there. Dallas Goedert, I think with Minshew now and a good matchup against the Jets, I like him even more than I thought when Hurts was going to play. Gronk is Gronk against the Falcons, you got to start him there. Foster Moreau, great Darren Waller replacement. I have him inside my top 12 tight ends. And Dawson Knox, I've been getting a couple of questions about him on Twitter, like, the Patriots are really good against tight ends. And I'm like, yeah, normally I wouldn't start a tight end against them, but Dawson Knox has played so well as of late. He is such a big part of the Bills' red zone offense that I think that he's kind of matchup proof at this point. You're hoping for him to score a touchdown. So I would still be starting him even in a tough matchup against the Patriots.
That's funny because on Tuesday's Fantasy Live, before we came onto the air, Kimmy and Cynthia made that exact point because I'm like, I think I'm benching Dawson Knox.
You guys convinced me on the Stardom Sit 'em show as well.
Okay, good. So that's where it came from. And I was like, but sometimes you have to examine things like that. And that's my natural instinct as well. Be like, oh my gosh, the Patriots allow an average of 4 points per game to tight end, all tight ends.
Right.
So naturally you would, but you know what? It depends on where they line up, the physical mismatch. So every one of these guys are volatile. Nothing's guaranteed, but I would rather roll with Dawson Knox, even though we love the Family Guy Ryan Griffin.
Me
I think it's
too.
safer just to go with the Dawson.
Go with the Knox. All right, it's time for us to take a quick break. And next, we're going to slide into some DMs, a.k.a. some definitely must-starts. Lombardi, Lenny. What is it now? Leonard, 4 tutties. Not bad. 4 touchdowns. Too bad
tutties.
Don't have him on any fantasy roster. That's on me. Joe Mixon. We talked about his quarterback earlier. Joe Mixon's been incredible.
Amazing, yeah.
Justin Herbert visiting his friends in Cincinnati, taking on the Bengals. I said I was a little bit worried about Justin Herbert. I had to beware. For some reason, I'm a little intimidated by this Bengals offense. But regardless, I think this is a really exciting game with some major implications on the league. Tom Brady taking the field.
He's all
facing
right.
the Atlanta Falcons. I think if he throws 4 touchdowns in the game today, then he would have 28 touchdowns to 3 interceptions.
Really?
Historically against the Falcons.
You know he's going for that.
You've never heard the joke?
I never heard that joke.
I have to listen to his bad jokes every single day. I want to get one Tom Brady 28-3 in there and look at the smirk. Welcome back in, guys, to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. Kimmy Checks, Adam Rank, Michael F. Florio. Every single Sunday, I say, guys, send us your questions, send us your tweets at NFL Fantasy. And now it's time to answer some live on air. Give some people some love, some fantasy love. Adam Rank, this one going to you first.
Okay.
I have to pick one, but having a really hard time which one to start. Hunter Renfrow, Tyler Lockett, or Brandon Ayuk?
I have Brandon Ayuk ranked higher. Even though the matchup's like perfect, but yeah, I have him. This is a difficult one. I think that DK Metcalf ends up outscoring Lockett this week with the old squeaky wheel situation. So I'm going to go Ayuk.
All right, Brandon Ayuk for Rank on that one. Florio, this next one for you. Dawson Knox, who you just talked about, or Logan Thomas?
I'm still going to go with Dawson Knox there just because he's been more utilized. I know Logan Thomas made his return last week, almost caught a touchdown, but I think Dawson Knox is the safer of the 2 options.
And he's not just saying that because he's a Bills fan. Genuinely the safer option. Background Rank, Jamal Williams or Myles Gaskin? I can't decide.
I know, Myles Gaskin is the guy that we have to go with. I think that, it really wasn't like an every other week thing. It was just like the matchups weren't very good. And last week, Myles Gaskin didn't have a great matchup, but they ended up scoring a pair of touchdowns. But if you're just joining the show right now, Michael Frank here was talking about how the Dolphins like to grind the clock with Myles Gaskin at the end of the game. So I think that's going to give them a little bit of an advantage today.
Little edge for Myles Gaskin. Florio, Marquise Hollywood Brown, or Jalen Waddle?
Is this from Jack? Oh, no, this is a different one. I would go with Jalen Waddle there of this one. Jalen Waddle, even with Devontae Parker back, he gets all the volume, and he's on pace to break the rookie catch record. The Dolphins know that, and I think they're going to try to keep peppering him with targets.
Okay, we like that last one. This is from our stage manager, Jack, who sits right there. Jack, what's up?
Oh, my gosh.
There he is. Mike Williams, Van Jefferson, or Devonta Parker in the flex. What do we get to dish out for Jack?
You know, I don't like Mike Williams' matchup this week. I think this is a Jared Cook game. Devonta Parker, I never want to play, so I'm going to go Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson's more enjoyable.
I would play Van Jefferson, and Jack, you could just ask me the next time we're talking.
I was going to say, you don't have to tweet. You don't have to tweet.
It's so aggressive.
More tweets coming in. Shout out to all of you guys asking us questions. We'll continue to answer them live here on the show. All right, speaking of social media, get your phones out, get your tablets ready. We're talking about some fantasy DMs, and no, it's not weird messages. Instead, it's definitely must-starts. Guys, we feel pretty darn comfortable with this week. So give me a DM.
I'm going to go with the Dawson. I'm going to fire this one back up again. You know, we were talking about him a moment ago. I think it's important, though, to reiterate that we want to start him this week. And I know that we're planting our flag here because the matchup is terrible. But sometimes, and I think this is just an overarching lesson, is that you got to look at context for things of, hey, they're shutting down tight ends. Who are the tight ends that the Patriots have been shutting down recently? I think when you look at, like, Jacksonville, how well they play against tight ends, they shut down Kyle Pitts, who's actually having a pretty good season, even though he's not as great as everybody wants him to be. Like, that makes sense. But I think with the Patriots and Dawson Knox, I think you're safe starting him.
What I'm hearing is the Patriots haven't played anyone good.
No, I'm saying that.
Now they have to face someone really good on Monday Night Football in your team. But since we're talking about your team, give me a guy whose DMs you're sliding into.
I just answered a fan question about him, but it's Jalen Waddle. I mean, Jalen Waddle has been playing so well this year. Since week 8 or week 7, I believe it is, he is top 8 in target share, targets per game, fantasy points per game amongst wide receivers. He gets so much volume, and he's doing a whole lot with it. He is a receiver that is dangerous both after the catch, and he is a good downfield target as well. So I think that Jalen Waddle has reached must-start status, not just this week, I think each and every week. And I'm not worried about Devontae Parker unless we actually see it impact Jalen Waddle's production.
I love it. I love how the tweets are lining up with the guys that we're chatting about here in fantasy DMs. My guy hasn't been mentioned today, and I got to show him some love. It's Noah Fant going up and facing my Kansas City Chiefs, and I want to focus in on Noah because I think I've seen a lot of questions on social media where people are ready to drop him, right? They're like, no, I had high expectations, and I'm going to be done with that. You don't want to do that. He's seen almost 7 targets a game this season. That's 8th most amongst tight ends. And if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs defense as of late, on paper they've been playing incredibly well, right?
Really well, yeah.
They're incredibly susceptible, to the tight end position. They're giving up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends, and through the air they're just not stopping guys. So I think Noah Fant is an easy one, and he's a friend. But hey, I'm picking people against my Kansas City Chiefs. So
there you go. Yeah, it's got to be rough for you.
This is impressive. You want to know what's rough sometimes? Have a great weekend. You go out, you have some fun. It's Sunday. You wake up. You look at your phone. You're like, I have the scaries.
Why did I send that text?
What? Yeah. You have the scaries, right? We've all been there. I'm there today, right now, currently.
Wait, I'm looking at my phone now.
Week 13, Sunday scaries. Who's a guy that you're a little bit scared?
You know what? I'm going to go with Russell Wilson, and I don't feel very comfortable having to start him, even though last week he ended up with a very nice point total because he had 87 yards and a touchdown on the final drive. But I think this has been pretty rough over the last couple of weeks. And, you know, you talk about just starting players because you're compelled to play them. There's nothing about the game tape. There's nothing about the analytics that say that you should be starting Russell Wilson. And, like, I wanted to drop him from a team because I had to go pick up Josh Reynolds today. But I didn't because my league mates would get all up in arms. Like, oh, you can't believe you dropped Russell Wilson. I'm like, I'm not starting him for the rest of the year. I'm set at quarterback. And so, to me, this is a situation where I just don't want to play him. I like him. He's one of my favorite players. Fantasy-wise, I can't trust him.
It's not personal.
Not personnel. Personal, sorry. I misspelled that in my head.
that was a weird switch up, but regardless, a little bit scared of Russell Wilson. We got the organs, the weird music, we got the screams. Who are you scared of?
I'm scared of this music first and foremost, but I'm really scared for Saquon Barkley, specifically because on Stardom Situm, I was the Saquon defender, and now I feel like if he disappoints, it's all on me if people start him. But it is a tough matchup. The Giants are very banged up, missing basically everyone around him, so the defense can focus on him. I still have him ranked as like my RB20 on the week. I'm still starting him where I have him, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't at least somewhat concerned about Saquon this week.
You know, it's interesting because I have him on my sit list, and yet there's a league where I'm starting Khalil Herbert. So I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I would rather start Saquon Barkley, but I think, like, in general, I'm not enthused about that.
Yeah.
And Ring made a really good point when we were on the Stardom Situm show on Thursday. It's like, if you put up Saquon Barkley's stats from this season and you crossed out his name, right, and you compared him to another
Myles Gaskin.
You would not ever think to start the Saquon Barkley type of numbers. So you have to put his name aside and understand he's just not quite been productive this season. I think he has just shy of 85 fantasy points total in the 2021 season. Yeah, I did the math on Friday, and was like, yeah, this ain't good. So no Saquon. I have some scares, and I'm going to stick in this exact game, actually, talking about the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not so enthused about this matchup against the Giants. The Giants have actually been shutting down fantasy quarterbacks.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And they're very tough against them. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't love Jalen Waddle, right? This doesn't mean I don't like the pass catchers for the Dolphins. But just looking at Tua specifically, he has only had 4 touchdown passes across the last 4 games. It's not like he's a touchdown machine getting me multiple TDs. It's not like he really has that rushing upside. It's a tough matchup, so I'd rather look elsewhere at other options.
I feel you.
So I'm sorry, Tua. I'm just a little scared. Give me the heebie-jeebies here in Week 13. Guys, Cordero Patterson does not give anybody the scaries. Instead, he gives me great joy.
Only the defenses playing him are scared.
Exactly.
I love it. All right, we'll be back here on NFL Fantasy Game Day, and we're talking about sleepers next as the Bengals get stretched out and ready to go. We'll be right back. Welcome back into NFL Fantasy Game Day. That's Matty Ice trying to be nice I really can't.
Oh, my gosh.
It's bad. Regardless of a very, very tough matchup for the Falcons and Matt Ryan going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Elijah Moore hoping to have some fun against the Eagles. He's come to fantasy dominance. We love him. I just want to see what he can do with a great quarterback.
Exactly.
Which is not Zach Wilson.
No shade, but it ain't Zach Wilson. This is NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. If you're just joining us, welcome in. Getting your lineups ready and set for Week 13. Kimmy Checks, Adam Rank, Michael F. Florio. Continue to tweet us all your questions. As a reminder, let's go ahead and take a look at some notable actives and inactives. These are guys who are playing in our early games. Good news for Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, as well as Brandon Cooks. All of those guys are active and will be suiting up to play. However, big name guys are out this week. Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, DeAndre Swift, Dalvin Cook, and Allen Robinson. Looking at our later games, some injuries to monitor as we get closer and closer to their afternoon kickoff. James Robinson is a game-time decision. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's questionable, as is Darrell Henderson. Melvin Gordon is officially out, so it's Javonte Williams time. Josh Jacobs and Odell Beckham Jr. both expected to play. Darren Waller is doubtful, and Deshaun Jackson is questionable.
I don't like that part of the questionableness.
Yeah, it's Deshaun, like, what are we questioning?
No, you're playing.
You need to play, Deshaun.
I got to get out there to the 702 myself. Be like, you're playing.
You got to suit up for us. Let's actually get to some burning questions.
All right.
Because we know we all have some as they happen. Over the last 3 weeks, DK Metcalf, he's the wide receiver 73.
Okay.
Wide receiver 73 for
That's
DK
good.
Metcalf. He's being outscored by guys named Lil Jordan Humphrey. Come on. Is DK a must start since we're so scared about Russell Wilson?
I mean, he's in the top 100. You got to like that.
Right.
Top 100. We do a show on it we still do it, right?
Yeah, I think
okay.
so.
You know what? I think that this is a good week to be starting DK Metcalf. I think it's going to be one of those situations where they understand they have to get him the football. You know, it was like we were talking about Debo a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know if Kyle Shanahan was listening to me, but I'm like, you should start running him more. And then all of a sudden, Debo becomes the best running back in the NFL. The Seahawks are in a very similar situation with DK Metcalf. And if I was the offensive coordinator for this club, I would open up by trying to target him as much as possible and get him involved. Don't wait to the final 62 seconds of the game to get him his first reception.
For real. I agree with you, Rank, on this one. I think that they're going to prioritize getting him the ball after what we saw on national TV last week.
Yeah, there was a big fat stat where it's like DK Metcalf, 0 targets. It's like that probably isn't good if you want to win a football game. Florio, I do have another burning question for you, however. Joe Mixon, he's the only player in the league with over 20 fantasy points in each of his last 4 games. Can he make it 5 against the Los Angeles Chargers?
I think so. I think we have to start valuing Joe Mixon as a top 5 fantasy running back because that's exactly what he has been this season. And the Chargers' strength is against the pass games, particularly against wide receivers, whereas they struggle mightily against the run. They're towards the top in the most yards. They give up a lot of fantasy points. So I think the Bengals are going to come out and try to get Joe Mixon going early on, try to keep the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands. And we know when they get near the goal line, he is their top option there. So I feel good about Joe Mixon again this week.
All right, seems like he can make it 5 against the Chargers. Those are some burning questions. But now it's time to look at some fantasy insurance presented by Geico. We all love sleepers. We all know that they can either make or break your fantasy team, and they feel so good when you pick them up and they work. So give me a Sunday sleeper, Adam Rank.
Well, I think one of the guys I want to start with, who we're going to be putting to sleep right now, is going to be Ryan. Wait, I don't have Ryan. No, I have Boston Scott. It's about all the homework sometimes. Like, do I have Ryan Griffin here? Do I not? Boston Scott. It's funny because we were talking about that injury report. We didn't even get to put Boston Scott's name. This is one of the most important guys of the season, or at least the week to me. This is a great matchup against the Jets. They've allowed 20 rushing touchdowns this season, 17 of them to running backs, and the Eagles have used Boston Scott as their goal line back. I don't know what Miles Sanders did to offend anybody on multiple coaching staffs, but nobody wants to give him the ball when he's near the end zone. Boston Scott has taken all that work, so I think that he scores this week, so I'm getting him into the lineup.
I love that call as well. And battle of the homework, I went with one that I know you love, Ryan Griffin. And listen, this has nothing to do with Ryan Griffin himself. It's all about the matchup. The Eagles give up by far the most fantasy points, the most catches, the most yards, and they're tied for the most touchdowns allowed to the tight end position. So if you're going a little bit deeper, maybe you missed out on Foster Moreau, I think Ryan Griffin is a good shot to take on just the matchup. And he's been getting about 4 targets a game the last few weeks. So
he's getting targeted.
Yeah, I think in this matchup, you could do a lot worse than start Ryan Griffin.
The Eagles have given up a top 10 tight end. They've allowed 6 top 10 tight ends in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah. So
6
there's
and 4.
Multiple.
The Chargers had 3 guys hit double digits against them. Tight ends, 3 different tight ends. It was the big Jared Cook start week.
Exactly.
And Jared Cook, I think, had 11 or 12 points.
And somehow,
and he was the third lowest tight end for the Chargers.
And then, like you said, and somehow Evan Ingram can't do it. Come on, Evan Ingram.
Myrick last week.
Sorry, guys, this music is just like really taking me out. Speaking of Sunday Scaries, I'm sleeping on Jamal Williams, but maybe you shouldn't be as he's taking on the Minnesota Vikings. You saw on our injury board earlier, DeAndre Swift is out. He's injured. He will not be suiting up, so it's looking like Jamal Williams will be the RB1 to get all of that workload. He had over 20 touches and 83 scrimmage yards last week against your Chicago Bears.
Diddly.
And the Vikings, they've allowed a top 15 running back in 3 of their last 4 games. So Williams being the workhorse back tonight, maybe.
Well, maybe
he can sneak into that top 15 and get me closer to the fantasy championship. Gardner Minshew, the stash. He probably wouldn't like this music. Gardner Minshew seems like a rock and roll kind of guy.
Yeah,
he seems a little crazy.
He listens to Nickelback.
Oh, speaking of Nickelback, Andy Dalton.
Goodness.
How excited are you?
Is it weird that I don't like the orange jerseys as much as most Bears fans?
No, it's okay. But coming up next, we're talking about fantasy flexes.
The helmet needs to be orange or something.
No orange jersey. Kyler Murray suited and booted and ready to go. The first time he will be back on a field in 3 weeks. And somehow the Cardinals got it done without him and DeAndre
That's
Hopkins.
the one thing I was like, oh, don't play. I'm like, doesn't matter.
Right? It's like, no, you guys are still good. Keenan Allen, also certifiably good.
He's working on the jug machine right now.
Yeah, turn it up.
Please get in the end zone.
I wish Keenan Allen was more expressive. If you didn't hear, did you not hear what he said? Oh,
no,
my
what
gosh.
did he say?
You know, we stumped everybody on Good Morning Football Weekend, too. Like, with the quote that he has about the velocity of Justin Herbert's passes. We'll look it up during the break.
Okay, please.
He's amazing. Keenan Allen's the best.
We love you, Keenan Allen. Welcome into NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico, getting you closer and closer to kickoff. Also, hopefully getting you guys closer to a fantasy championship. Kimmy Shex, Adam Rank, Michael F. Florio. You guys, the gym's that way. You can't even tell in my puffy shirt. I got guns under here, guys. Come on now.
Nothing.
But we do love some fantasy flexes. So let's flex it out and tell us some guys you think are solid flex options for Week 13, Rank.
Well, hopefully you're just joining the show because we talked about him a moment ago. But Jamal Williams is a player that I really like this week. And I think one of the biggest things to me is his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He was a perfect 5 for 5 targets and catches last week against the Bears. And, I'm really happy that the production team is backing me up here with a couple of his receptions. We don't need to see him running as much. He's going to run. DeAndre Swift not playing this week, so he's going to be their number one option. But we talked about this earlier in the show. The Vikings are very good against stopping tight ends, which means good opportunity for Josh Reynolds, but also for Jamal Williams this week.
Yeah, I like Jamal Williams. I have him as a top 20 running back. Someone else that I surprisingly have moved up into my top 20 running backs, Sony Michel, because Darrell Henderson is very much up in the air right now. Early reports are that the Rams are not optimistic that he will suit up this week. And even if he does, I expect him to be limited. This could be a blowout potentially late for the Rams. And I'm thinking that even if Henderson plays, we're going to see more Sony Michel than we normally would, especially if the Rams have a lead late and they're trying to grind out the clock. Sony Michel is the perfect style of running back for that. So I think you could play him either way, but especially if Darrell Henderson sits.
Okay, love a little Sony Michel love here. Mine is Hunter Renfrow. I can't even say Hunter Renfrow for the Las Vegas Raiders, taking on the Washington FT this week. He's had over 17 fantasy points as of late, actually in 3 of the last 4 games to be exact, and he lines up in the slot. The reason why that is so incredibly important is because the Washington FT defense, they've allowed the 2nd most receptions a game to slot receivers this season, and his quarterback, and Derek Carr, has the most passing yards in the NFL. He knows how to stretch the ball and get his guys downfield. Hunter Renfrow also knows how to get in the end zone, so love him against the FT. All right, those are our flexes, but it's time now for Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's get to a couple notable players in fantasy. So, Rank. The Buccaneers held Jonathan Taylor to under 100 yards on the ground last week. So can he have the over-century mark today against the Texans?
Very good matchup for them. And it's one of those things that a lot of people are trying to hedge off of Carson Wentz and off of Michael Pittman Jr. because they expect Jonathan Taylor to go out there and have a huge fantasy performance against the Houston Texans, who allow a lot of production just to opposing offenses in general. But I think Jonathan Taylor does bounce back this week.
All right, well, give me a specific fantasy projection then.
I'm looking at about, 19 to 20 fantasy points. I think that he will eclipse 100 rushing yards. I think about 110, 120. Then when you start adding in a couple of receptions, a touchdown, I think it's very close to 20 fantasy points.
All right, that's not bad at all. DraftKings had him for right around 104 and a half. So hopefully he can go over that. Over the century mark is the important thing for Jonathan Taylor this week. Florio, Deontay Johnson has scored between 10 and 25 fantasy points in every single game this season, noodle arm, quarterback, and all. So is he a must start versus the Ravens today?
I think so, because the Steelers are going to have to put up points to keep up with the Ravens. I know it's a division game. These two teams know each other so well. Weird things could happen. But the unquestioned top target for Pittsburgh is Deontay Johnson, partially because Big Ben can't throw the ball downfield anymore, so just go to the guy who quickly gets open, but it leads to fantasy production, so that's what we care about.
Okay, well, DraftKings has Johnson right around 74.5 receiving yards, so what is your fantasy projection for him today?
You said he's been between 10 and 25 in every game this year, so let's split the difference, go right in the middle with a clean 17 fantasy points. I wouldn't be surprised if he scored a touchdown, and he's lately, the last couple of weeks, been around 90 to 100 yards he's always good for about 6-7 catches as well.
Incredible. That was Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Go ahead and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code Who Scores to claim your deposit bonus up to $1,000. You must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only, new customers only as well. A bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions, they do apply, so go ahead and see DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Here's Mike Evans getting warmed up and ready for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe he'll have some good receptions, get me some fantasy points. Guy drafted pretty high and heavy this season. Zach Wilson, the young gun, looking to get it done for the Jets today. We'll be right back. Our final advice is next. Welcome back into NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. Is Tom Brady going to be the MVP this season? Like, is this where we're at in
Forever.
life?
I mean, there's really like nobody. I mean, they'll probably end up giving it to Aaron Rodgers just because, like, whatever. He's the default. They honestly don't like giving Brady the MVP award as much as you think that he do. I think that Aaron Rodgers gets that more than Brady ever does.
They saved the Super Bowl MVP for Brady.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
That's the one thing. They need something
Tom
for
Brady.
Rodgers because he's so good in the regular season.
There's Kyle Pitts, our unicorn draftee, the tight end for the Atlanta Falcons.
He's going to end up with like close to 1,000 receiving yards, and everybody thinks that he's a bust.
Because the hype, it was there.
That's on you. That's not on him.
Well, yeah,
That is
that's
fair.
true. It's also
Like, if
on
you
me for
built up-
drafting him and
you
as
built
my
up-
tight end one and being a little disappointed.
You've built up Shake Shack so much in your mind that by the time you get there, it's not that good. That's on you.
Okay, well, 15 minutes to kickoff now, presented by Geico. Taking a look at our notable actives and inactives for the games that are kicking off in just 12 minutes. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins suited and booted and ready to go, as is Brandon Cooks. However, Allen Robinson, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Daniel Jones, and most notably, Jalen Hurts, all out and not suiting up. So make sure those guys are out of your lineup. Let's get to some fan questions before kickoff, making sure everybody's rosters are ready and set. Let's fly in the tweet. Adam Ring for you. It's a half-point PPR league. Devonta Smith or OBJ, who is expected to play?
I'm going to go with Smith. I think that he's been a little bit. He wasn't great last week, but I think that was because Jalen Hurts was struggling a bit. But you know what? I think, and he doesn't have James Bradbury chasing him around this week, so I'm eager to go with Devonta Smith again.
We're flying on Devonta Smith here in Week 13. Florio, do I start Matthew Stafford or Justin Herbert? It's been my hardest decision all season long.
This is close. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. I believe I have them back-to-back. I just think that game has the chance of being more competitive, where we could see the Rams kind of pull out with a lead and then just start running the ball a little bit more. But I think Herbert Burrow could be back and forth all day.
All right, another one. Adam Rank, Chase Claypool, or Elijah Moore for my PPR flex spot.
Oh, I don't like Elijah Moore because, the Eagles have actually shut down opposing wide receivers this season. I'm going to go Chase Claypool. I'm going to do it. The Ravens have been way more generous to receivers.
Okay.
And even old noodle arm Ben Roethlisberger should be able to
I knew we'd get the noodle arm in. No noodle arm for either of these guys, though. It's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Who do you think should be started?
I've had Josh Allen higher all week, but the bad weather is starting to scare me a little bit. So I think I might play it safe there and pivot to Lamar.
Okay, Lamar Jackson. It is, thanks, guys, for our producer literally just said, what?
What?
What? He just screamed in my ear. Thanks for blowing out that eardrum, Mr. Blasucci. It's time now for Fun Sunday Fun Day now. I'm all flustered. What? I want to replay that in my head all the time. But let's get some bold predictions in here. Who will be today's top scorer, Adam Rink?
I said it was Tom Brady. That's right. I said Tom Brady. I thought it was. I'm looking forward to hearing my rundown. I'm pretty sure it's Tom Brady. I know that I said this earlier in the week as well, so I feel very comfortable with this one. Last week, Leonard four tutties. It reminded me of the Jonas Gray game back in 2014 when he scored 4 touchdowns inexplicably in a Sunday Night Football contest against the Indianapolis Colts. A total I predicted, by the way.
Oh,
I Jonas Gray that. I did.
Hey,
the humble brag stamp. We'll get that later. But the following week, Brady returned to throw for nearly 400 yards and a pair of touchdowns the following week. So I think he follows a similar trajectory this week.
All right, Florio, give me yours.
I love the Tom Brady pick. I almost went with Jonathan Taylor here, but I figured everyone was tired of me talking about him. So I'll go with the guy that I don't talk up too much, Austin Eckler. Look, Austin Eckler's the RB2 on the year. He gets a bunch of catches each week. They're shown that he is now their goal line runner. They are not afraid to use him there. And I keep saying I think this game could be back and forth and competitive. That usually means a lot of passes going Austin Eckler's way. So I think he has a good day in a pretty good matchup.
Ooh. This is going to be a back-and-forth game. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stick with it here and instead look at the other side of that game and say it's going to be Joe Burrow against the Chargers as the top scorer on Sunday. He's been playing lights out. He's had at least, at bare minimum, 2 total TDs in 9 of 11 games played this season. And the Chargers, they have consistently been allowing top 12 quarterbacks in 4 straight weeks. So let's just bump them up to that number 1 spot. Just bump them up 11 notches, and then you are the QB1 for Week 13.
He leads the league in swag, too.
There it is, yeah.
Leads in swag. But speaking of some quarterbacks, I need a must-start from you.
I thought you were going to say, speaking of swag. That's fine.
That too. I need swag and quarterbacks from you, Adam.
I'm going to go with Kyler Murray, just because I know a lot of you have questions about him, whether you want to start him or not. And I said this early on. If you missed it, it's okay. It bears repeating. Whenever these players return from injury and they want to limit them and you hear like, hey, DeAndre Hopkins is on a pitch count, you can control DeAndre Hopkins by not putting him on the field. Kyler Murray's on the field, and once he's on the field, he's on his own. And his natural instinct is that of a playmaker. He's going to be doing a lot of this stuff, extending the plays. He's going to be running. He's going to be doing all the things that you love about Kyler Murray. So I have no hesitation about starting him. So if you have him, you've been waiting, start Kyler Murray this week.
Love it. Florio, you give me a must-start quarterback.
Kirk Cousins. I have him in my top 5 this week. Look, Kirk Cousins has been playing really good ball this year. He's been a QB1 more often than Patrick Mahomes. Sorry, Kimmy. He's just...
Earmuffs.
I know you love Kirk Cousins, too, though.
I do.
He's been playing really well. You see there, he plays well on the road. He has over 20 fantasy points in 3 of his last 5 games against Detroit. And it is the Detroit Lions, but... it's a week where the Vikings clearly need a win as well, so I expect them to just keep throwing even if they have a lead.
All right, my quarterback, it's going to be Derek Carr taking on the Washington FT. I know we talked about some other guys on his squad, but Washington is an incredible matchup for him because silently they've allowed the most touchdowns and the most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. That's good because Derek Carr is playing lights out. He has the most passing yards in the league. You see it right there, over 310 per game. That's his average this season. I like him this week against the FT, so I'm going to rock with him. Let's get to some more must-starts. a must-start running back would be?
Well, speaking of the FT, let's go with Antonio Gibson.
No, I'm not at him.
Because last week,
I'm so mad.
on this show, Kimmy Checks, and I quote, said, Antonio Gibson is garbage.
I did not say that.
I'm just kidding.
You're going to get me canceled on Twitter.
I'm just kidding. No, well, you didn't start him. That's
No,
all it was.
I didn't.
Sometimes it blows up. It's fine. Like, you know what? But I like him. I understood where you were coming from. It's just, he's been so good. And with J.D. McKissick out this week, a lot of the touchdown production, which is one of the reasons why you were worried about him, a lot of that production has gone out the window. The one thing that stands out to me is that he had 29 carries on Monday. 29, not touches, carries.
Insane.
It's insane.
Insanity.
And that's one of the things. That's why it's so difficult sometimes. If you would have told me, hey, this running back's carrying the ball 30 times, of course you would start him. But I think they're going to have to do it again. And the Bears and a lot of teams have attacked the Raiders by running the football. So I think he's pretty safe this week.
Another must start.
Jamal Williams, no DeAndre Swift. He had 20 touches last week. The Vikings rank middle of the pack against running backs. And the thing is, even if the Detroit Lions fall behind, we know they're going to throw the ball plenty to their running back. That normally goes to DeAndre Swift. With him out this week, I expect it to go to Jamal Williams. I think he is someone that you can definitely start this week.
Another guy I think you can start this week. And moving forward, it's Javonte Williams facing my Kansas City Chiefs today. The news that Melvin Gordon will not be suiting up and play. It means Williams will have all the opportunity and production. Over 17 touches and 100 yards in 2 of the last 3 games. And a decent matchup against KC. Let's get a must-start wide receiver in here, Adam Rank.
You know what? I'm going to go with Mecole Hardman.
Oh.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a little bit spicy. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Obviously, you're starting Tyreek Hill and all those guys. I love this matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that they have now started to hit their stride. Andy Reid, probably the best coach in NFL history coming off the bye. His teams are always prepared and ready to go. And so I think that this is a huge opportunity for him. And I think as Patrick Mahomes starts to look more like himself or just have the more prolific production, he's looked like himself. I think that, again, it comes from the jaded eye of having the too high expectations for him. So I like Mecole Hardman because I picked him up in a bunch of places.
Someone I'm starting in a bunch of places is Brandon Ayuk. I know the early season part was rough for him, but he's been getting more consistent usage as of late. You see him here. They like to go to him in the red zone. And Deebo Samuel is the 3rd most touches amongst wide receivers. He is now out. So I think a lot of volume goes to Kittle and to Brandon Ayuk. I would definitely start him this week.
Speaking of a guy with all the volume, my must-start wide receiver is Michael Pittman Jr. facing the Texans. He's leading the team in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns this season. That's actually basically every single offensive stat you can. And the matchup is good as the Texans have allowed the most receptions a game this season. Moving along to the tight end spot, Adam Rank, who's a must-start?
I'm going to go with Cole Kmet here. And if you look at the fantasy points again for the entirety of the season, the Cardinals have been very good. I think they might have allowed the fewest fantasy points to tight ends over the course of the season. You break that down over the last month, they've been a little bit more generous, and that coincides with Cole Kmet becoming a bigger part of this offense. With so many injuries to the Bears pass catchers, we saw that Allen Robinson's not going to play. Darnell Mooney is their number 1 guy. Kmet, is their number 2 option, so I would go with him.
I would play Pat Freiermuth this week because, with tight ends, we say, oh, you want a touchdown. That's what he does. He's got 5 touchdowns combined in his last 5 games. He's getting consistent volume. Noodle Arm Ben likes going to Pat Freiermuth, so he should be in your starting lineup.
I'm not going to watch this show if you guys continue to refer to Ben Roethlisberger as Noodle Arm.
God, I just love the accent. My must-start tight end. It's none other than Rob Gronkowski, who made a guest appearance on Chill Brawl this week on Fantasy Live, which was great. But he gets the Falcons today. He had 2 receiving touchdowns against them last time they played back in week 2. He's averaging over 15 fantasy points. He's fun. It's Gronk. You want to start him. All right, it's time to get to our bold prediction.
Yeah, bold prediction.
Give me one, Adam Rank.
I'm going to say that Michael Pittman ends up being the wide receiver 1 this week.
Ooh.
I know Internet Guy does not like Michael Pittman because they feel like, the Colts are going to blow him out. It's going to be all JT. Watch out for Michael Pittman this week.
I got some spice for you. Josh Allen is going to score 20 more fantasy points than Mac Jones because the Bills,
all the smoke.
He's got the strong arm in the bad weather. He can run. He could do it all. 30-10. It's going to be something like that, point voice.
But Lamar Jackson outscores him.
Potentially.
I can't follow that up. That was like all the spice, all the smoke, but I'll attempt to to follow it up with something, I think that Alexander Mattison will be at least the RB3 this week against the Lions. That's my bold take. That's my lock. You guys, thanks for rocking with us here on NFL Fantasy Game Day. Kickoff is happening literally in just a second. This was NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico, and those guys right there are the Cincinnati Bengals taking the field.
Here come your Chicago Bears.
Here come the Bears.
Get a white helmet for those jerseys at least.
Dude, stop with the orange jersey hate. And the Jets. Yay.
Oh, surprise.
NFL Fantasy Game Day. We'll see you guys next Sunday.